Hello, in this video I'm going to talk about CSS animation using keyframes. Keyframe animations let you do looping animations and do animations that can start without a user input, such as a hover. So the setup is very similar to what we had in the earlier video. We simply have a container, and in that container, one div with the class item. The container takes up the whole viewport, and everything in the container using Flexbox is centered. And we have an item, which I've just made yellow so we can see what's happening. First thing I'm going to show keyframe-wise is from and to. From and to is useful if you want to have simply a beginning and an end. So to set this up, you say at keyframes. And then we give it a name. It's handy to give the name something that's meaningful to you, but it can be anything. We're going to say from, that's the start, and then to is the end. To start, we're going to say transform, translate x, and we'll say negative 150 pixels. And then to transform, translate x, 0. So this should slide in from the right. I'm just going to format everything. And if I refresh, nothing happens. We need to add a minimum number of parameters to make this work. The first parameter is the animation name. So how do we connect this class to some animation? That's the first thing. And then we need a duration. This 2 seconds. And there it is. If we hit refresh, it goes again. So there are 7 parameters that control animation. And we'll kind of go through them one by one. So animation, let me just put them in here for a second, and I'll use the defaults. So animation delay, animation iteration count, 1, animation timing function, animation fill mode, animation direction. Well, actually, I'll put the direction here. We'll put delay underneath. Okay, so the animation iteration count, the direction, control how this thing loops. So if I make this 3, it's going to play 3 times. 1, 2, 3. If I put it to infinite, it's going to just keep playing. But I can also do reverse. So reverse is direction. Or I can alternate. So this is going to just kind of ping pong back and forth. The delay is self-explanatory. You know, how many seconds you want it to pause. So it's going to pause for 2 seconds and then it's going to bounce back and forth. The animation timing function we covered in the last video. The animation fill mode is a bit more difficult to wrap our head around without a little more setup. So let's change this around a little bit. Let's say it starts in the middle and moves to the right. And we'll do 1 count, normal. Okay, and then we'll add a transform to our item as well. And then in here, we'll use a couple new colors. So we'll say background color, aqua. and background color pink. And this will let us show which kind of state it's in. All right, so it starts as yellow. After a delay, we'll make the delay a little quicker. After a delay of 1 second, changes to blue. It pops into a new position, changes to blue, and then slides over and gradually transforms from aqua to pink. So the animation fill mode is what we're talking about at the moment. I'll put these two together. So the default is none. And so how none works is it'll start in the state you have defined in the class here. So it by its default, its starting position is negative 150 pixels to the left. And then when the animation begins, it will inherit whatever values you set at the beginning of the animation, and then it will go to the end of the animation, and then it'll reset again. So yellow, blue, pink, yellow. We could also do some other ones. So there's forwards. What forwards does is it will start with this, then do this, but then stay in the state from the last keyframe. We can also do reverse. What reverse will do is it will play this, then that, and then jump back to its initial state. Or we could do both. And what both is going to do is ignore this and go straight from here to here and then stop. So this took me a second to kind of wrap my head around this. So let me just go through it one more time. So normal is starts here, then this, then that, right? And the delay is helping us see where it's starting. Forward is the same as normal. However, it doesn't go back to its initial state. Reverse starts here, then goes here, and then goes back to the initial state. And then both ignores attributes that are overwritten by the animation. So we have all these attributes here. Like many things in CSS, we could write it as a shorthand. So animation, and here it has the name, duration, timing function, delay, yada yada. If you have a lot of things set to default, this can be a nice way of saving some lines of code. So let's use it. Okay, so name, slide in, duration, 2 seconds. Timing function, we'll just leave it at ease. We won't have any delay. We'll say infinite. Direction will be normal. Fill mode will be normal as well. So get rid of all of this. Refresh. Get rid of this. And what we'll do here to show you the next thing on the list, we're going to do an animation that's triggered by a hover. And that animation parameter is not one that we can use in the shorthand. So instead of having this bounce back and forth, I think what I'm going to do is change this to rotate 0. So right now it's easing in and easing out. If I want this to be constant, we will change the ease to linear. Great. And then let's make this, let's give it a background. Aqua, sure. And a height of 50 pixels. Okay. So the next parameter is animation-playstate. And we're going to set this to paused, and so nothing's happening. And what we can do in our pseudo class is have it play when we hover over it. So what should happen now is when I roll over this, it plays. And it stops. Pretty cool. The last thing I'd like to look at is having more than just these two keyframes. So for that to work, instead of just using from and to, we're going to include percentages. So let's turn off this hover thing. Let's turn off play states. Let's go back to translate and translate again. Make my window a little bigger. Say 1 rate. So instead of saying from, we're going to say 0%. And then this can be 100%, which should be the same thing. But now we can do like an intermediary thing. So let's do that. I will say, I'm going to copy this one. And I'll make this like that. And then maybe we'll do in the last keyframe, Y. Oops, sorry, they're both 100%. Make this 50%. And then it goes over to here. If I wanted it to go over to X and then stay in that X position, I need to add this over here as well. The Y, if I want it to move over and stay in that X and then animate in the Y, I have to combine these together like this. There we go. Now it's happy. So that's how we could have more complex animation right within the CSS, and be careful about defining your transforms because it's just going to reset to whatever that transform is. Okay.